Hi, team. Welcome to the Escape podcast for Star Wars The Old Republic. Coming up, we talk about Master Mode story chapters and some tips and tricks. But first, some game and guild news. Our broadcast astromech today is EPC 182, who will be riding this Master Mode escape pod. I guess that means I'm going to toss him in there real hard or something. I don't even know. With me, as always, is Seema. Hi, Seema. How's it going?
Hi. Maybe it means you're going to toss him in there masterfully.
Yes, I will. Yeah. He may not survive, as we have found. This is how Master Modes work.
Yes, we are going to talk about Master Mode chapters. And in celebration of that fact, I actually went out and did a Master Mode chapter. That was chapter 2 in Knights of the Fallen Empire, not Knights of the Eternal Throne, the earlier one. But speaking of ops, in our group last week, we did hard mode EV for some fun times. Although we had very bad luck on the unassembled drops on the non-SOA bosses. In other words, we got the requisite number on the last boss, but you know how you have a chance on bosses 1, 2, and 3, or the earlier bosses. We got RNG'd out of those.
That time, right. Yeah,
that time.
that night was
there have been
bad.
other times when it seems it dropped every time, so it balances out in the end. I like it better when they drop. Okay. I did do a couple heroics, but mostly I did crafting this week for Conquest, and I did do Conquest on Fortunes, although even though I was keeping notes, I did have two of those on Sunday night that I forgot I hadn't gone back and finished. So I had to, thank God I remember, because I would feel bad if I made a bunch of war supplies out of mats and then didn't even get credit for that. And then I would have to replace all the mats at some point, and I would just have useless war supplies lying around. So yes, I did that on Sunday night. I did have to get up a little early on Monday and log them in so they got, that completion. But I guess it's not a bad thing to get up early on a Monday morning, is it?
No. Yes.
Oh, I should mention too, we have had a lot of snow going on here in the last few days. I mean, literally, up to like the bottom branches of trees, and my deck is got snow up to the tops of the railings. I know some of it's drift, right? But
right.
it hasn't been so white out. And like on the day it was snowing, my windows, I couldn't see out them because the snow was sticking to the windows.
Wow.
And so it was just white. So that's pretty fun.
I am surprised. We've had a weird winter here in Chicago where it hasn't been necessarily that warm. It's been warmer than usual. Not all that warm though, but no snow for like weeks now in the middle of February, which is really rare for Chicago.
Yeah.
It's usually just slammed, at least, it's slammed often enough with a snowstorm and, foot of snow here and there to keep the ground significantly covered all winter, but not this winter.
I mean, we had a couple of really big snowfalls last year around this time, so it's not surprising, but I still get surprised every time. I'm like, wow, look at all that.
Yeah. And yes, we did do our hard mode. Getting into the hard modes is fun because then you start getting the 236 unassembled pieces. We did get screwed out of the pieces, though. Our first foray into bothering to go and do hard mode. But we've been getting lots of unassembled pieces other nights. And like on the mandatory fun nights, I've seen us getting lots of pieces. So that has been fun. I did jump in, did some Galactic Starfighter. I tried Master Mode chapter, got one of them down, tried a couple other ones that I did not get down, and we'll talk about that. I just didn't I didn't spend too much time in it. I expect to be able to go through them eventually. So we'll talk about that. But between the time in ops, our off nights that we've had, the time I did in War Zones and GSF, I went from Galactic Command rank, I was about 66 or 67, and I went up to 85 just like in
Wow.
4 days. Because I was even out of town in the middle of the week. So like in 4 days, I went from 67 to 85. I
Yeah,
ended up
I'm up.
I was cranking through so many ranks. At one point I had 20 gear packs in my inventory, 20 of the command crates to open and check out. And oh, that's the other thing. People don't be mad, but I've had really good luck out of the command crates now up to 85 on set pieces.
Nice.
So I think I have five of 5 of 6 or 5 of 7 or 6 of 7 set pieces. Let me see. There's Yeah, I have 6 of 7 230 set pieces now. So that is satisfactory. So that was fun, and GSF seemed to slow down a little bit. Although I didn't play on any GSF bonus days, and there were some good play. Although we had some nice balanced matches. We had one 50v50, the death match GSF where we finished like 47 to 50, and we lost, but because it was such a close match, I liked it.
Yeah.
Got a lot of as long as you get some good number of medals and you play for long enough, you do get a lot of command XP out of a GSF match. So that was cool too.
That is cool.
So that is Max news. Let's talk about the real news.
The actual news.
Now, an Imperial News Network report.
Apparently, I won't have much to say about this because it's relatively unspecified, but there's an unspecified error with the launcher. Very descriptive. I remember my days as a developer and trying real hard not to have error messages pop up that said things like unknown error. So,
Well, you also don't want them to say the wrong thing.
right. And at some point you have the try catch block and it goes all the way up to the top and there's something unspecified and you've just something's broken. You don't know what it is. All they said so far is they're going to check it out. You can try restarting. That sometimes works. You can try deleting Bitrater folder from your SWTOR directory if you're using Bitrater. That sometimes works, but it's not guaranteed work, so you might just be having problems. So hopefully they'll get that fixed.
So was it actually SWTOR CS has said delete the Bitrater folder? Because I thought their position was, at least a while ago, like don't mess with that.
It was Musco, as far as I know.
Oh, okay.
In the official forums saying you can try to delete your Bitrater folder. I think just deleting the folder, not deleting Bitrater, not turning Bitrater off, that's actually a precarious
I
thing.
see. Okay.
But I think just deleting that folder causes it to re-download the cache.
Okay,
So yes,
that
it was
makes-
Eric
that
Musco
makes
saying
perfect
delete
sense.
the Bitrater folder from your SWTOR directory.
And then
See,
also
I
in the
will prove
news, there was a live thing on Facebook where Eric Musco basically interviewed Charles Boyd. And they took some questions from Facebook, I believe. I watched it on Facebook, but I am not a Facebook person, so I don't know all the ins and outs. But they somehow he had some questions. But if you've been watching the live streams or listening to us talk about the live streams, it was all the same stuff. Questions like, am I going to get my companions back? And Charles was like, I love companions and they're going to come back when. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make fun of Charles, but yes, he loves the companions. He's going to bring them back when he can do it right. That answer that we've all heard before.
Okay.
So it was like
The
nothing.
usual answers.
Right. It wasn't like that one time when they did a story live stream and there was two writers talking to each other and they talked about how they came up with Scorpio, the character, and where they were going with it. It was more high level stuff.
Got it. So I wonder, I wonder. It's late. I don't know where I'm
It's
at
midnight.
today. I wonder if we can see that somewhere, see a replay of that. I have not yet found a replay of watching him do that because I did not catch it live. So I'll keep an eye out for that. If somebody finds it, let me know, and I'll check out what Charles there said. Let's see. Also in the news, I'm sure there's something for me to say here. Yes.
Yes.
Eric also specified in the dev tracker that by patch update 5.1.2, which is coming on the 28th of this month, they will be reintroducing that vendor which sells the thing called the White Acute module. And what that does when you use it, it's an on-use item, and it gives you a buff that, or debuff, as however you want to term it, that shuts off bonus XP. So it's going to drop you down to base level. It's going to turn off the bonus XP, cancel out the bonus events, and they're going to try to ensure that they bake it into their event model. So anytime they run a bonus XP event, that vendor will show up, and you'll be able to grab that White Acute module if you think you need it.
Right.
I'm still, I'm surprised they did it. If it was me in charge of development, I would have said, no way, man, that's ridiculous. So it was nice of them to go that far.
I would have said yes way, because options are always good.
Options. I prefer straight up stock grants over options.
Oh my God.
Because the variability is too much.
I mean, because as a game developer, you want to attract people who play your game in all different kinds of ways. So, yeah.
Yes, that is true. It seems like it didn't take them all that much effort or effort
right.
to decide to do it, and I doubt it's going to take them much because they've had that vendor before. So
right.
Great.
And they just didn't think of it. And now they're saying, which I think is good, yes, we're going to do it, and in future we're going to think of it.
Yes.
So that it'll be in there before you have to complain about it not being there.
And just to be clear, for a growth company, I do prefer options if at all possible. I was joking.
Good to know. We're going to do a segment on that one day.
Only if it's a growth company in a growth market, though, because you can get screwed pretty heavily.
That's right, you can. Yes, you can.
How about some guild news, Seema? What do we got going on for the guild this week?
So Conquest this week, we're doing Nar Shaddaa on the imp side and Tatooine on the pub side. And let's see, the normal repeatable stuff, war zones, and I guess also the heroics in Nar Shaddaa. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I actually did not look at this. I meant to.
I did. And you're right, because but that's it. You just said it. It's the war zone week. The name of the week is the Death Mark. So it's all about the war zones, and it's huge bonuses for running war zones, for running PvP. So I would highly recommend that. But because they've thrown in the heroic missions on Nar Shaddaa, remember, if you're 70 and you do those through the Galactic Command interface, you do Control G, you click planetary missions, and depending on what comes up, if it's not Nar Shaddaa, then you just hit cancel and you hit and click it again until Nar Shaddaa comes up. You can do that once a day. So if you're doing that once a day and you're doing those 5 Nar Shaddaa ones once a day, and you're getting the 1,500 each, you just do it a couple times on a character and you'll hit your target if you don't want a PvP. So it's not bad.
Yeah, because the target is only 20,000 points.
Correct. So that's cool. I also noticed some one-time bonuses that are huge also, but for PvP. If you get up to 100 kills across war zones, then you get like 4,000 with the bonus on Nar Shaddaa. If you complete 10 war zone matches, you get 6,000 with the bonus, so 3,000 base. So 6,000 with the bonus, 9,000 with your 100% stronghold bonus, or more if you got the 125. So just doing 10 war zone matches, you'll also, but at least complete, if not far exceed your conquest target. So that's cool too.
And if you're on the pub site, I see you can do Starfighter matches. Tatooine has a bonus there.
Nice. Yep. And Nar Shaddaa has a little bit of a bonus. No, Nar Shaddaa does not have a bonus for Starfighter, but it's still 500 match. That's not bad.
Yep. Yep.
And lots of conquest or command XP points for that kind of stuff too. So keep it in mind. Also, thank you. Did you have one more thing?
Yeah, well, yes, I was just going to say, if you're in our guild and you have not responded to us in Discord or guild chat or whatever saying you want to be part of the guild effort on the closed PTS, let us know. Because like Eric posted, the invites are continuing to come in waves.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I forgot about that too. So there is a closed PTS. He does have the note up there that they are taking especially guild groups to make sure that you're getting groups in there to complete the first ops boss. It's designed around the operation. It's designed to get guild groups in, and that's what they're taking first. But they are continuing to expand that, and yes, AIE has got a group in there, and we can try to get more people added to the list. We had a little sign up and got a group in there. Can't talk about it more than that, of course, but yeah, good point, Seema. Otherwise, thank you to our chat room here for the stream. You guys are always awesome, and I appreciate having you guys in there helping us out and giving us tips and comments and tricks, and especially tonight as we go through tips and tricks for master chapters. Drop them in there, and even if we don't explain it here for anyone listening, you can watch that stream go by on YouTube if you ever want to check it out. And I will talk to you guys after. But right now, I think we can get into those tips and tricks for master chapters.
Declaration. I have completed a full analysis of my functions, Master. I'm ready to liquidate high-threat undesirables with a 100% efficiency, as the Maker intended.
You better have companions with 100% efficiency if you're expecting to complete these master chapters. I will tell you that, man. This is serious business. So we're going to go through it. Maybe we'll just start out, though, with you and I, Seema, on... I only completed one because I just tried it yesterday. I did for fun. I decided, I'll go do a master chapter. I know we've got people in the guild going through and ticking them all off, and I think have completed them all, at least a couple people. But I went in there. I did chapter 1 of Fallen Empire, and then I did a little bit of 1 and 2 of Eternal Throne, and I think a little bit of 2 of Fallen Empire. So I only completed 1 in what I tried, and did it enough of some of the other chapters to get to the bigger bosses and get the feel for what was up and what it was going to take. And it's serious business. So what's your thoughts just in what you've done so far, Seema?
So I did similar things since we decided we were going to talk about this. I went and did Master Mode Chapter 2 in Knights of the Fallen Empire. And I picked that because I was kind of looking around on the internet, and I actually Googled, easiest Master Mode chapter, which didn't help me much. But on Reddit in particular, I saw a bunch of people posting that, this one you can do in 6 minutes and that one you can do in 6 minutes. And I didn't really expect to do it in 6 minutes, but I figured if the people who are doing a bunch of chapters are doing these in 6 minutes, then maybe I could try it. So that I picked chapter 2, and then I was actually glad I did, because chapter 2 in Knights of the Fallen Empire, which I had forgotten, is the chapter where you have to you're in like that dream state with Valkorion, and you don't have any companion at all with you, and you do that thing where you see your old companions in the distance, and you have to fight your way to them, and then you have to do some more fighting, and then you have to fight some past enemies, and then at the end you have to fight a big monolith type thing. So that was the chapter I did.
Monorail. You fight a monorail. Yeah, I didn't do that one. I just did the first one, which that's the one where you're with Darth Mar and you got to escape the ship. The only tougher part, well, even just some of the champion mobs along the way, there was it there, or was it chapter 1 of Eternal Throne? There was one of those mobs that had an ability, a one-shot ability that was more than my health. It was like 120k hit, and I was at like 110k health. And so there's stuff, and that was just trash. That wasn't even like an end boss. So I was slightly amused by that. I did die quite a few times just trying the stuff out and trying different things. So we're going to get into some of the tips of stuff you should be trying and testing. You will need to come up with strategies on some of this stuff to get through the master chapters, and that's part of what we're going to speak about. Just to kick it off, you can get into any of the chapters by going to the chapter interface. You go up to the top of your screen and press the little chapters button. It should give you the option to get into any of the modes of any of the chapters you've completed. You can, as Seema, you confirmed, jump right into master mode even if you have not done veteran mode.
Right.
So that's interesting. And then you just click on the mode you want, and you click the launch button, and you get into it. Like here I'm starting up that one that you talked to. Oh, here they come. Sky troopers are coming to kill me. But yeah, so then you're in.
Got very
and you do it.
creative. I got very creative running around those sky troopers. And that was just pure laziness on my part because these guys I didn't really have any trouble killing.
Oh, just to try to avoid them and get around them?
Yeah, so you can run. I mean, I don't know about this particular pack that you're fighting right now, the very first one, but after I killed them, I said, I remember people saying you could avoid a lot of the trash, so I just started trying and could run up on the rocks and run. Even though they spawn when you get close, I could still run around them.
Oh, this one is also interesting. I think you get a little bit of a bonus from Valkorion in this one.
He does. He heals you.
Yeah.
And actually, I spacebarred, when I did it, I spacebarred through the dialogue. So when I saw him healing me, I thought, I didn't accept his power or something, did I? And I guess not, because later on I started reading the dialogue then, and later on I hadn't accepted any power. But he does give you periodic heals. I did have to heal myself though as well. He doesn't out heal the damage, let's say. You still have to
Got it.
do your part.
So what was your experience to start? Look, see there, I just died. Just regular trash mobs.
Yeah, on these, when I was doing these, instead of running around them, I actually would CC one of them and then kill the others one at a time. I was in my healing spec, right? So it's not a fast thing necessarily, but it worked. I had more trouble with the silvers or the strongs or whatever you want to call them, but still, even with Valkorion healing, I was still healing myself quite a bit. I did use also defensive cooldowns. I went back and forth between my responsive safeguards and energy shield, which both helped quite a bit.
Yep.
For attacks, if anybody's interested, I use unload, and then I use power shot and missile blast.
And that's as a healer, right? So I found that fascinating. So I did it as DPS. I didn't even think of. I thought maybe of trying some as tank spec, but I didn't even think of trying it as healer. But you're a master healer, so
there were a few opportunities to use death from above, especially further in where you get into the more the Drum and Cause section of it. There's some little packs of, like, I don't know if they're Drum and Cause citizens or whatever, but they're just normal mobs, and I could actually get them almost dead with just death from above. But I ran around them too when I could, just because. The bad thing though about running around them is they're still there after you if you die, you have to run around them again. Whereas if you kill them, they're gone.
Right.
When you die, you go back to the beginning of that section of the chapter.
Right.
So it's almost like they're save points.
Yeah, a little bit, which is nice. That reminds me of when we would be doing a lot of operations stuff on our operations groups. We would typically just plow through and kill all the trash, because if you wiped for whatever reason, having to go back and try to run around the stuff again was always a pain. So we would just
Yeah.
kill it.
And
So
then,
maybe
yeah,
it's easier just
you'd
to
pull them
kill it.
anyway, yeah.
But so that
The
that
hard, the
I
most
think,
challenging thing for me was the very last boss, and I guess that's
yeah,
probably true of every chapter.
or multiple bosses throughout the chapter. So like chapter 1 or chapter 2, whichever one I tried of Eternal Throne, had a boss in the middle, the big champion robot with conal attacks, and he puts out these mines and does a bunch of stuff, and his orbital strike, if you don't, you can't, I don't know, I couldn't heal through it unless I interrupted it or reflected it. It would kill me, type of thing, or put it on my companion. But that does, just reminding me that you tried it on heal spec, and we were both doing it on mercs, and you were a healer and I was DPS. That gets to one of our first sort of tips and tricks to try, which is you will need to be looking your spec. You may need to respec. You may need to try it as DPS, or you may need to switch to something like healing. So I've got a healing spec for my mercenary. I may need to switch to heal to get through some of the sections, to do it correctly.
And if you're doing a chapter where you have a companion, same goes for your companion. Even if you're in a DPS spec, you may want to try your companion as a healing or tank or DPS. Each fight, you kind of have to approach each fight like its own thing and not expect what
Yep.
has always worked for you in questing to work.
Yes. So I was switching. I did the chapter 1 of Eternal or Fallen Empire, where you've got Darth Mar with you sort of in the second half of that chapter, and you go through some trash and you fight a boss robot at the end who's not too tough, but significant damage. I mean, he can still kill you. I think I died at least once. I was switching Mar back and forth between heals and DPS for various parts, because I can do some healing. Also, switching the companion to tank is another viable strategy in some situations, because then they can even take some of the big hits for you, and if it doesn't kill them, they may be able to even take 2, and letting them die so that you can kill a boss is another strategy to keep an eye out for. So
Plus, you can resurrect them if they die.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can, because you're. I would have to like find the button because it's not even on my bar.
Well, then there's a good tip. Put it on your bar.
But yeah,
But
that's
yes,
true.
not
You
every class can
you
do that for
resurrect
sure. But yeah,
them.
yeah.
The other part of respecking, so respecking yourself, respecking the companion, is your utilities. So resetting your utilities to match what you're experiencing in that particular fight, or what you're going to need to optimize a particular fight, is a good idea as well. There was a couple of people talking in Guild about them going back and forth and changing their utility set, especially if you were getting into a fight that had heavy AoE. Then maybe you're going to want to change it out and get some of the utilities that are AoE reduction, for example. And keeping an eye out for what's going to be the optimal mix of utility points to get you through various fights is going to be important too.
And as I talk to different people, asking them for tips and trips, because like you said, we have people in our guild that have done these chapters over and over and over again. It kept coming back, to treat each encounter as its own thing.
Yeah.
So you might need to do something different for that encounter that you didn't have to do for the counter before it.
Which, for better or for worse, is how Nightmare Progression raiders treat doing Nightmare Progression. They may even be swapping out characters for different fights. People are certainly changing up their specs and optimizing their utility points from fight to fight as well. So that's kind of what you're doing with these master chapters. So it's a good opportunity to puzzle that kind of thing out and get yourself a view of what that kind of gameplay is like. Okay, so there's our spec, there's our utility points, there's the companion stance, the tank, heal, or DPS. One other thing I'll mention from sort of a configuration perspective is your companion's abilities that they might have can be turned on and off as well. So you don't have to have sort of, if you want to sort of optimize what they're using or what abilities they're using and when they're using them to some degree, you can be clicking in their bar and turning those abilities on and off. So here if I have Galt up and he's healing spec, I can shut off his ability. That's the stun, for example. And that can be particularly useful if you want full control over that. So this is bound to control 5 or whatever on the way I've got it set up. If I right click on that ability, it shuts it off. He won't auto cast it, but I can manually have him cast that stun ability then and have control over that stun. That can be pretty interesting and useful.
And if you're doing what I did, which is CC while you're doing the trash, you can also turn off your companion's AoE abilities, which will prevent them from breaking that CC. Because they won't break a CC with single target abilities. At least
right.
They seem
won't
pretty
turn
solid
and
about that
shoot
in my experience. Yeah, right.
And finally, with the companion, they do have the ability to be passive or active. If they are passive, they will not be shooting at the enemies. And they won't be, especially if they're a melee companion. Oh, that's another thing, melee versus ranged. But if they're a melee companion, they won't be running up to the mob, which can be very useful if the mob has an AoE, especially a circular a radial AoE around them. And having your companion and potentially even switching back and forth between passive and active to get them to step away and step out of AoE and step out of stuff on the ground and not stand in the garbage is another technique which you may have to employ. Certainly something that I've employed before in soloing Star Fortresses and in soloing the Eternal Championship. So something also to keep in mind.
I know everyone has their special way of doing this, but I've always had my companion attack and companion callback on the scroll wheel of my mouse. So I can just, send them in, bring them back, send them in, bring them back, if I need to get them out of AoE.
That's
and then,
a really good
like
idea.
you said, that you mentioned the keybinds. Also, when I was talking to the guild, Zen had brought up the point that healing companions can still heal even if they're in passive stance if you put their abilities on your keybinds and you press them. So, like, if you've pulled your companion back to get them out of AoE, you can still hit their heal spells and they will still heal. I have never done that.
Yes. Yeah, so that sounded interesting too, right? To manually control those heals even if they're passive and standing next to you. That's not a bad deal. One other thing I noticed is that I found useful when I was, although I didn't finish the fight, but when I was trying it out, at Chapter 1 of Eternal Throne, I'm fighting that big giant robot that you get to, champion boss robot. He's got a 90-degree a 90-degree angle conal effect that he sprays out in front of him for a big chunk of the fight. If you run in and your companion is on the same side of you and in that conal effect, your companion's not going to get out of it, for one. For two, the companion's going to die if they're in that effect. So I was sending Lana in. I think I had Lana I tried her as DPS, I tried her as tank, a couple different things. Then even as heals, she's a melee DPSer, will still run up to the thing even when she's healing you. So I would send her in, and then I would jump to the mob and go to the other side of it. So that conal effect was in my direction. So even when I stepped out of it, it wouldn't turn to a place that I was going to hit her, and I could still sort of move it back and forth as if you're tanking in an operation. And you've got your DPS behind the boss, and you're tanking the boss, and you're moving its conal effects and its cleave to keep it from hitting the rest of the ops group. That's a couple kinds of techniques you can use with your companion there too, to keep in mind. if that makes sense the way I was describing that.
Yeah, basically, yeah. I like the tank analogy. So we're saying you can either move your companion out of the AoE, or you can move the AoE off of your companion. And
Yes,
then
for
a
the
lot
ones
of
that
them,
work like that.
yeah, a lot of them that are telegraphed in a certain way, you can control where they're going to go, and then you personally can step out of it at the last minute too.
Exactly. Exactly. Another thing that I think you already mentioned then that we can sort of go to the next step is control over the mobs. So CC on mobs that can be CC'd, just like the trash packs in particular. Certainly, get those CCs out and start using them. I was using my CC on trash packs, even if I wasn't even sure if I would necessarily need it. Might as well. Some of those trash mobs, like the one I just died to, it was a pack of 4. Each of their basic abilities was hitting for 25k. My character has 110k health. If I've got 4 trash mobs all shooting me at the same time, no matter how much Valkorian's going to be healing me, all 4 of them shoot at the same time, I'm dead. So CC1, and then do focus damage too. If you need to then be DPSing down mobs, remember the optimal way to do that. If you haven't sort of been running your ops group and marking targets, you kill the high damage, low health mobs first. So mostly you're killing the weakest mobs first because
Right.
they're all doing significant damage. You're killing those mob first. You're doing focus damage. So especially if your companion is doing damage too, you and your companion get on the same mob, CC1, you and your companion get on the same mob, blast another one down, then go to the next one, then go to the next one, heal up, then break the CC, and then kill the last one.
Right.
So certainly do that kind of thing. Get all of your look through your abilities. If you're not used to using them, especially if you're not a PvPer, you may not be used to using all of these abilities, because sometimes your crowd control, your knockbacks, your stuns aren't useful in PvE running with an ops team, because you start knocking back mobs and the tanks are going to get mad at you, right? So maybe you took your knockback, your jet boost for your commando, or your whatever wave off of your Sork and Sage. Maybe you took them off and you don't use those very often. You do want to have those on and be ready to use those and figure out clever ways to use them as another sort of control. Can't use them on every mob. There's a lot of mobs that are immune, but stuns, interrupts, CCs, knockbacks, all of those kinds of things.
Electronet. Yeah.
Slows,
Roots.
right. All those kinds of roots and slows. Finding clever ways to use those is certainly a way to get optimal strategies going.
And one thing you can do, which I had thought of too, is use things like heroic moment. But in one of the things that Kobu, is another guildie, said, and I hadn't thought of this, was to use the other legacy abilities, unity and sacrifice. Unity, I do not have on my bars anymore. So that's a good tip, because that is actually a pretty big damage mitigation. I think it's 50%.
Yeah, for 15 seconds.
And then he also, a couple people reminded us too that rather than taking the normal med packs for healing yourself, you can get the med units that heal you and your companion.
Yeah, that one I hadn't even thought of. So that was a good tip. I just completely forgot about that. I very rarely end up using my heroic ability, like my heroic moment and my unity, only because they have the long cooldowns. But especially on those boss fights, especially if you wipe a couple times, I'm darn well going to use it. So there's there's that to keep in mind. But that you started getting into this sort of the next group of things I was thinking about, Seema, which is the defense, right? And you as a healer probably have a whole mess of defensive things you talk about, but you think about. But why don't you go through some of those defensive cooldowns, defensive things that you can do?
So when I was doing that last boss in chapter 2 of Coffee, basically it was an exercise in survival for me because I killed him pretty slowly. Um, and he had two styles. After I had messed with him for a while, I realized that he has two styles of trying to do damage. One is the melee. He just comes up and wangs. He just beats on you. That was actually causing me more damage than anything else. And then he also has the thing that he telegraphs, which is very easy to get out of. If you get caught by that, though, that actually does the most damage, but just don't get caught by that. So for me, the pattern was use my defensive cooldowns or run away or kite, whatever, when he's trying to do his melee stuff. And that's also when I was healing. And then when he put his telegraph down, I would move behind him and I would use that small amount of time to do some DPS, or if I had to regen resources, or if I still had to do more healing, because that was when he was ignoring me. He was just thinking about his little ability that he was going to do. So basically that was the pattern for me. When he was trying to kill me with the melee stuff, then that's when I was just trying to survive. Then he would do his telegraph and I'd run behind him and I'd start killing him. I did the most damage, honestly, with responsive safeguards. So, and I saved that for when he was trying to hit me. Actually, I wonder if it would have worked on the telegraph thing. I was afraid to try that. But when he was doing the melee attacks, I would pop responsive safeguards, and that would actually do probably about 20% damage to him. So that was a huge help. And then, like I said, it took me a while to kill him, so I had responsive safeguards up at least twice during the fight. And then, and it's on a 2-minute cooldown.
Right. No, but
and
if it's a boss fight, there's no enrage timers on these guys. So.
And the same with energy shield. I tried to not use them at the same time, but a couple of times I had to, and then I was like without anything for 2 minutes. But then you just do a lot of healing and running. I tried to stay in reasonable range of him. I would be outside of the range of his AoE. It's not an AoE, it's a conal. But I was also thinking that I really didn't want him to reset. And I wasn't sure if he would reset if I got up on rocks or anything like that. Because since it's taken a while, I did make a mistake twice and got killed at like 50%. And when I went in for the third attempt, I was like, he's going to die this time. I do not want to do this over again. And yeah, so I was not risking him getting reset. But since it's your instance, he probably would follow you all the way back to the beginning. I just didn't want to test it. Maybe I will, though.
Right. That's a good question. But yeah, I've used some of those. I've used my defensive abilities. I've used my rocket out. I've used I did use rocket out. Certainly used my Kolto overload quite a bit. The self heals on this character. If you've got shield abilities, if you've got like a Sork, I would imagine have optimal use of your stasis bubble, your different self heals. If a couple classes now have reflects, the stealth classes have vanish. You don't want to reset them, but if you can use that to like break an ability, that can be quite interesting to see what you can do with that. You have your rolls to get out of roots and those kinds of things. Your stun break, make sure you've got that ready to go. Determination here for my commando to break out of the stuns and especially not getting stunned in fire. That's useful. Hydraulic override type of abilities, all of that kind of thing is quite important and useful. Get used to figuring out where all of those things are and be ready to use those as well. So that is good. And then that gets to, I think, what you were sort of mentioning there a little bit, Seema, which I think is really important and something to challenge yourself with, is positioning. So one thing is not standing in garbage. Another thing is letting the boss, face one direction and you to do their little telegraph thing and do their little song and dance, and you get behind them. But there's a whole class of kiting that, ability to kite really well that you can get into too, that you may have to use in some of these cases. So for people, I think everybody is mostly familiar with what kiting means, but that means getting far enough away from the mob or the boss or whoever you're fighting that they can't hit you, but you can still do damage to them. It's never perfect because any boss any reasonable boss has abilities to get around kiting and will either pull you in or leap to you or have enough ranged abilities where they can do damage to you. But it can save you from certain types of attacks. And when you can kite around line of sight, around pillars or boxes or those kinds of things, those can also interrupt long cast attacks, which can be quite interesting and useful.
And give you a second to get that heal in.
So I was definitely using kiting when I was fighting the big robot in the first chapter of Fallen Empire. I didn't even think to not, because I had the high ground. Anakin, I have the high ground. And I cleared the trash that was on the two sides of the room, and then there's two ramps up, and there's sort of like a walkway up above looking down on the boss. I sent Darth Maul down to the boss, and I stood up on the top, and I bang, bang, bang. I shot the boss, and when the boss starts running up, then you can jump down, and then the boss is going to run down after you, and bang, bang, bang. You can keep shooting him before, and he's going to waste time trying to run around and come find you. One thing I did notice that was a challenge, and maybe you have solutions to this, or maybe it's sort of the turn the companions on and off, is when I was line of sighting the boss, and I had Darth Maul on healing, and Darth Maul was punching the boss in the face, I was line of sighting Darth Maul also and not getting healed, which I did not like. I did not appreciate that, Mr. Maul.
Yeah, that's a different issue with healing, because sometimes you don't have aggro.
Yeah.
If your companion, if they're DPSing, sometimes they have the aggro. So LOSing is a whole different exercise then.
Right, and then because the companion won't kite by themselves. Right. So trying to be crazy about trying to make
fiddly.
Your companion
it's
kite
so
would
fiddly.
be interesting. So do you?
But I'm seeing. Go ahead.
Do you use the companion on tank stance very much?
No. I used to when I first started playing. I did it a lot when it was my Sage and Kaizen. But the most common thing I do nowadays is I put my companion on DPS. But like I said, in the master mode, I don't know. I'm going to try them all, because this chapter I did, there was no companion. So
another thing that's interesting with the tank companions is the taunt. So if you can ping pong the boss even if you're a tank, there's situations where it's potentially useful if you have full control and you want to take control over the taunt ability, or you're DPSing and you have a companion that can taunt. If you send the companion in and the companion gets a little aggro, then you start wailing away on the boss, and say the boss has abilities that are taking off 2/3 of your health. Let the companion take one of those abilities. Then you heal up the companion back up above 2/3. Then you start doing DPS. You pull aggro off the companion, and you take one of the hits. Then you heal yourself up, and then you let your companion taunt then to take the aggro back, and the companion takes the next hit. Doing that ping-ponging of the aggro in that way can also be a strategy to use them to their best of their abilities. So I was switching.
It sounds like we need two companions.
Yes, that would be great.
Which
I think there are a
actually
couple rare points in Knights of the Eternal Throne where you do have more than one companion.
There are, but yeah. But I do want to say before we forget this, it reminds me of a really interesting comment that Nez made, which is another guildie of ours. He says, if you're doing the master modes because you're after the achievements and you're not necessarily trying to learn them so that you can farm it, bring a friend, and then that friend can choose whatever companion they want, their highest influence companion. You do the chapter together, successfully, and then you turn around and do it the other way. So like if you're the main person and your friend is helping you, you get the achievement and the command experience. But then you turn around and do it again for your friend, so you have like a buddy system.
And that's for the achievements, but
Yeah.
not for command XP. Do you
No,
not?
no. The main person gets command XP, but the person that's helping, I don't think they do. Or I'm unclear on that, let's say.
I see.
But
I
yeah,
thought you
it's
did not
so
get the achievement checked off. I think you don't get the achievement doing it that way. Like so when you bring up the interface, you do Shift E, you look at your list. I think you do not get the medal for the completion unless you do it solo. I th-
well.
I thought that was the
I'll have to
original
try that
design.
then.
Maybe that's not. Maybe that's no longer the case. But I thought that was the
Or
original
maybe
design that they
or
talked about.
maybe there is an achievement you can get that way. I don't know, but we will have to check that out. I thought it sounded like a really good idea because I know some people are not interested in doing the you know, doing the kiting and all the stuff that we're talking about. In fact, they probably won't even listen to it. They probably stopped listening already. But yeah,
Yeah. So I think I think HZSS in the chat room
yeah,
is saying that with a friend you do. I think the
yeah,
group leader will get the command XP and get the check off of the achievement and maybe that little
right,
medal in your
right.
chapter
Which
interface.
is what Nez said, and that's what I
Okay.
I that's what I meant to be saying anyway.
That's
Haha,
pretty
Peters,
interesting
thank
then.
you. Peter says we're always listening.
Always watching. Always watching Wazowski.
I was said in a creepy voice. That's okay.
Yes.
Max already said it in a creepy voice.
I say everything in a creepy voice though, so yeah, okay. So that's pretty interesting. It's certainly, double the work if you have to help a friend and they have to help you, but especially just to check it off and get it done once. Can you then bring in 4 people? You can probably bring it up to 4 people then. So it's not I don't think it's limited to 2. If it's a 4-person group, if it's a group, it's a 4-person group. So maybe we can get groups of 4 to help people check it off the list. There's a little
Yeah.
guild event for you to set up with your friends. So check it out. You can tell them, max. It's a max run of the chapters to get everyone to get their achievements. That would be sweet, and so nice of you on this Valentine's Day to help your friends out that way. But otherwise, I think that's a pretty good list of tips. One set that we won't need to go into because I don't think either of us know just yet, but I'll be interested to see once you get to those chapters, especially in Eternal Throne, where you have to ride the walker or drive the robot type of things. How that feels in master mode might be weird and interesting. So let's
I
keep
just
an eye out for
noticed that not only did I not have to do veteran mode first, I actually got, the button ticked off for veteran by
Really?
doing master.
So you got the little.
Yeah.
Oh, that is interesting
It's
too.
it's white. Yeah, yours are white too. Yeah.
I think that's silver, but yes. Bronze, white,
Silver,
and gold
okay.
medal. Did you get the white medal in the Olympics?
Shut up.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that's a pretty good set of tips. So check your spec, check your companion spec, manage your abilities, use offensive cooldowns, use defensive cooldowns, use your interrupts, kite, position. Treat it like an operation. Treat it like a fight strategy that you'd use
Right.
when you have to look up the fight on, a fight guide somewhere, and go to town. And
That's right.
you'll get a ton of command XP from it, so you got that going for you too. In addition to it being fun, but why would you do it only for fun? That's stupid. All right. But
Fun
with
is
that,
dumb.
fun is dumb. So with that, I think our 182 droid here is ready to head out and master this escape pod. So thanks to all of you for joining us on newoverlords.com, iTunes, YouTube, or live on Twitch. We will stream again next Tuesday night on twitch.tv/newoverlords around 10:30 p.m. Central. Please follow us on Twitter at MaxTheGray and at AIESEMA. Please subscribe on YouTube and come find us on the server Jedi Covenant and ask us for an AIE Guild invite. We would love to have you. And we'll talk to you soon. And Seema will talk to you soon too.
Oh, later, everyone. I was already being silent for 10 seconds.
Later.
Bye.